Hello everyone and welcome to Read Aloud with Miss Godfrey. I'm so glad to have you joining me again. We're going to continue our reading of Schooled by Gordon Korman. If you look, you can see where my finger is. This is all we have left, guys. Like, we've come this far and we just have a short little bit to go. So I'm going to be reading chapter 22 today. Chapter 22 is from Capricorn Anderson's perspective. We love good old Cap. He is always finding something new to get into. So we're going to pick up with him today. If you remember from the last time we read, the last chapter was from Daryl Pennyfield's perspective. And he led the brigade of the football team running over Capricorn Anderson. Cap was out there in a jersey of the opposite team, and the football team just barreled right over him, and he was injured. But then he kind of came back out into the hallway, and Daryl was getting into it with Zach Powers, who we know is not the greatest kid around, not the nicest kid, which is not good because we should always be kind. But Daryl was about to punch Zach, which we know violence is never the answer, and he ends up punching Cap instead, and punches him so hard it knocks him out. So we left the last chapter with Cap getting in an ambulance, and that's all we saw. So we're going to find out today what happens next, what happens in that ambulance, and what is next for our good friend Capricorn Anderson. So without further ado, let's read chapter 22 of Schooled by Gordon Korman, from the perspective of Capricorn Anderson. Here we go. It says, the back doors of the ambulance swung open, and there she was. Wonder who she is. She sat in a wheelchair that was anchored to the floor. She looked paler and thinner, but never better. Not to me. I hugged her. Rain, I've missed you so much. She hugged me back and then pulled away and held me at arm's length. I see that. Have you been in a fight? I tried to stop one, I admitted. I guess I've got a lot to learn about peacemaking. She nodded proudly. Good for you. We always try to save the world, but sometimes the world doesn't want to be saved. She looked at me critically. You're going to have 2 black eyes, you know. I grinned at her. I'll take 4 black eyes if it means you're telling me that we're going to go back to Garland. We're going home, Cap. I think the rehab center was glad to get rid of me. Some of my opinions didn't sit well with my fellow patients. Like it's a crime to speak your mind, she beamed. I insisted that we come straight here to pick you up. I didn't want you to have to spend an extra minute in this horrible, awful place. It's not so bad, I told her. Different, crazy, but there are good things about it too. You're a kind soul, she praised me. But it's all over now. We just have to stop at Floramundi's and pick up your things. So remember, Floramundi was Mrs. Donnelly. So they're going to go get his stuff. The EMS tech slammed the door and turned to Rain. We've got to run the siren for a few seconds or we're not allowed to pass school buses. Nothing to worry about. The vehicle whooped and wailed off school property and then returned to making its silent way through traffic all the way to the Donnellys. I ran to the house calling, Mrs. Donnelly, Mrs. Donnelly. I was anxious to share my good news with the lady who had been so nice to me. Sophie looked up from the depths of a Department of Motor Vehicles pamphlet entitled, Welcome New Driver. She's at work, just like every other day. What's so important? I'm leaving, I told her. Well, don't let the door slap you in the butt on your way out, she said, stifling a yawn. When will you be back? Never, I replied. Rain picked me up straight from the hospital. We're going home. She put down the manual. No fooling. She peered out the kitchen window at the ambulance parked in the driveway. Sweet ride. Your grandmother's in there? I nodded. She can't come in, though. She's still not getting around so well. Do you want to go out and meet her? That's okay, she said quickly. My mother's been telling me Rain stories for years. I feel like I already know her. She took in my swollen face and blood-spattered tie-dye. Whoa, are you sure that ambulance isn't for you? I was embarrassed. My nose started bleeding at school. I'm fine. You look like you killed and ate a wild boar, she commented mildly. Come on, I'll help you get your stuff together. It took barely a few minutes to fill my duffel bag and erase the fact that I'd ever even lived in that house. I'm not sure what made me ask if I could have those Claveridge yearbooks. All that was behind me now, but studying them somehow had almost become like a hobby to me. Knock yourself out, Sophie insisted. You're doing us a favor by making stuff disappear. I wrote a note to Mrs. Donnelly, thanking her for letting me stay there. I could have ended up in some kind of group home for all of those weeks. I made sure to tell her that Rain was grateful too, since they had known each other. I guess this is it then, said Sophie. I paused at the TV, the only one I might ever get to watch trigonometry and tears on. I can't believe I'm never going to find out how Rashawn does in college. Oh, he never makes it to college, she informed me. He gets run over by a cement truck on the way to freshman orientation. I was shattered. No! She laughed. I'm just pulling your chain. I'm sure he lives on to be a total basket case, just like everybody else on trigonometry and tears. He doesn't exist, remember? I'd say get a clue, but where you're going, you're probably better off without one. We exchanged a very awkward goodbye. I wished her luck with the driving test, and she told me to have a nice life. It gave me a special glow to note that she was wearing the bracelet she thought was a gift from her father. Sorry, I lost my spot. It was real. It was fun, but it wasn't real fun, she called it as I headed down the front walk. It seemed fitting that the last thing she said to me was something I didn't understand. I got back in the ambulance and we drove off. I knew that I would never forget Sophie Donnelly. Next stop, Garland, Rain told me. I couldn't keep myself from grinning, which made my nose hurt. It was about an hour's drive. It would have taken even longer, but the driver used his siren to open up some snarled traffic. I could tell the instant we turned onto the dirt road that led to the community. I had memorized every pothole and rut in that driveway, and they were all precious to me. The fact of returning hadn't become real until that moment. The ambulance stopped, and the attendants helped us out and up onto our own porch. The first thing I noticed was that the duct tape had come off my pendulum. The bowling ball weight had fallen, cracking the floorboards. I took in sights and smells of the only home I'd ever known up until several weeks ago. It looked smaller than I remembered it, and more used. The colors and textures seemed very bland compared to the warm and bright bricks and stuccos of the houses around Sea Average. I felt a pang of guilt for my disloyal thought. This was the greatest, most beloved spot on earth. If it looked a little run down, it was from all the weeks of standing empty. Rain could always read my mind. This place is lonely. It missed us. Not half as much as I missed it. Alright guys, that was chapter 22. Kind of a short chapter there, but we see, to our relief, that the ambulance was not for Cap. Because when I read that last chapter, I thought that Cap was being taken away in an ambulance and something was going to happen to him. So we know that he is okay. He just was there being picked up by his grandmother. And now they're back at Garland. So he said goodbye to Sophie. Said goodbye to his previous life. So that's where we're at. Now, keep in mind, Cap has a dance to plan, so I wonder if he's going to return to Sea Average Middle School. I wonder if he's going to go to the dance. We'll find out more tomorrow. So stay tuned and meet me right back here tomorrow for Chapter 23 of Schooled by Gordon Korman. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.